drawing from Ireland and Germany, a number of different countries, Nepal. Oh, welcome to GASworks, a guild of artistic sorts. We are bringing the world the best of arts and entertainment in Salem and the North Shore. And when I say the world, I mean just in the few weeks that we have been airing, we have drawn an audience from places like Ireland and Germany, to name a few. Just this week, we had 23 hits in Nepal, so welcome. Please follow us on Facebook. We will update you on upcoming episodes, and also we will keep you updated on what the artists that we have had on the show, what they are doing currently. So stay with us.
And here's where we visit with both performing and visual artists in what's clearly a no-frills setting. So if you're spinning the dial, don't pass gas. Come on in. Spend some time with us here. This week, our focus is going to be life's stories, and we've got a couple of very exciting guests. We've got John Fogle, Artistic Director of the Salem Theatre Company, which this month, or this fall anyway, celebrates its 10th anniversary. Also joining us is storyteller extraordinaire Judith Black, who is going to tell us a little later about how she was commissioned by the Smithsonian Institution as one of America's great storytellers to share her tales. And she's going to give us a story, right, called Dancing at the Y. So that'll be a fascinating visit. So first, let's spend a little time with John.
You look worried.
I was never commissioned by the Smithsonian.
Where'd you get that information?
I mean, the U.S. Department of the Interior, Massachusetts Foundation for the Humanities.
Where's our fax checker?
Damned internet, folks.
Oh yeah, I saw something on this on the internet that said that.
I
So we'll have
performed
to-
at the Smithsonian,
that.
but a commission means they paid me to create a story for them, which they didn't.
Which they didn't, okay. But you performed at
That's
the-
a
I have
big
performed
deal.
for the
Okay.
Smithsonian.
And you've
Judith, I
been-
would have just let it alone.
Yeah.
This is the way careers are born.
Okay.
But before we go, first of all, I want to congratulate the Salem Theatre Company on their 10th anniversary. And anybody who has worked in theater knows just how difficult it is to reach that
Yes.
milestone.
Yeah,
It's no
yeah.
small feat. But before we even go there, John, I want to ask you what I think is a very important question. What is so important about the arts?
Well, you may be sorry you asked. But I have a strong opinion about that. In fact, I think artists and the arts community has done basically a very poor job of communicating to the public why the arts are important. I come also from a marketing background, and you know, in marketing you talk about the features and the benefits. The benefits of a product is very important. So we don't really know what the benefits of the arts experience are in this country. The arts have been with us since time began. Cave
walls.
paintings,
Yeah.
you know, what were they about? Well, they weren't just about decoration. They were about a way for the people of the time to deal with the dangerous, the unknown, the mysterious in their lives. And that's what we do with art. My theory is that the arts are humankind's unique problem-solving tool. We're the only species that has it. We're the only species that is aware of its own mortality. Dogs don't know that they're going to die.
Yeah.
So this knowledge of our mortality sets up a racket inside our heads and in our lives that has ripples that go everywhere. So we all face problems in life and challenges. Let me focus on theater. Now, what theater does, each play is a little analog of life. A situation is presented, we're presented with characters in the situation, and they encounter a problem, a challenge that the play posits a solution to. Happy, sad, bittersweet, whatever, comedy, tragedy. Every play has conflict.
Yeah, there's never been a play called The Village of the Happy Nice People.
Absolutely. And if there was,
No one would
nobody would go.
No.
So let me ask you this, why should a viewing of Othello be more effective than a 5-week workshop in anger management? Well, there's a secret here, in theater particularly. In life, we are connected to our problems. We are complicit in them. We have some culpability. You know, maybe there's alcoholism, maybe there's abuse, maybe there's, imagine all the problems. But in our own lives, we can't quite separate ourselves from them. In the theater, you cannot stop Othello from strangling Desdemona, even as you know it's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we come to these life situations with our defenses down. We allow something in.
Mm-hmm.
We don't stop it at the door because of guilt or responsibility. And then we learn something about a life situation that we may or may not be facing, but might. So I think that this makes the theater in particular a particularly useful experience. Now, if this all sounds like work, we have to remember that it's leavened by great writing, great performing, beautiful sets, great music. It's leavened by fine art. But the core art is really, how do we solve the problems of our lives? And everybody needs it. And this is what happens when you go to the theater and you see something that connects with you in a way. It's somehow more real, it's more crystalline, it's sharper because you can see it from the outside in. So I think this is not a story that is told very much in our culture. We don't know what it's for. We think it's entertainment. It's a frill. We think of the arts as window dressing. I think they are the window itself.
Absolutely.
Do you know, I've known a few folks who have no respect in a sort for fiction, for theater. They
Right.
say, well, you know, history's got so many great tales. What do we need Shakespeare for?
Right.
Which to me is dumb. You know, Shakespeare puts it succinctly, but he also puts it entertainingly, and he put it.
He draws on history.
Yes,
Yeah,
certainly
there's
does.
a funnel for history.
Sure. But then there's cats.
Dan is not a cat man, but we won't let him go there. I do want to stop, though. Thank you, that was so beautifully said.
Thank you.
And I think it's exactly why I am so happy to be living in Salem when I discovered the Salem Theatre Company itself. Because everything that you talk about is in every season that you put together and the people that you draw. Just the quality and the level of artists and the level of work that goes on at the Salem Theatre Company and the level of discussion that I wind up having with whoever I bring to the theater with me afterwards.
Right.
It brings so much to my life. And I'm just speaking from a personal level, and I want to thank you both for that.
We talked for 2 hours after art last night.
Last night, yeah.
Yeah.
So I do want to get back. So let's
Sure.
talk about Salem Theatre Company
Okay.
10th anniversary.
Right.
I have received some information through Salem Chamber recently that said that the Salem Theatre Company brought nearly $2 million to the creative economy in Salem over the last decade. And for
Yes.
those who don't understand what the creative economy is, it's not just employing people within the community, but it's drawing folks in to spend money on the theater, to go to dinner, just to kind of
Babysitting. You know,
all the
everything
things that you
that you spend
absolutely
money on,
yes,
spend
and
night
also
out.
the projects that you provide to the community as a whole that are beyond the shows.
Mm-hmm.
So how does all that happen?
I don't ask myself that question too often.
Yeah.
How does all the creative economy happen, or just
How is such a small nonprofit, actually not so small, Salem Theatre Company is the second largest nonprofit
In Salem.
in Salem,
That's right.
next to the PBS Museum.
Really?
Yeah, second
there's a
largest.
slight gap between
Yeah,
but
but
we
so
are.
how with such limited resources
Yeah.
do you
Well,
pull
a
all
lot
that
of people work pro bono.
off? Okay.
I mean, it's a lot of people who find this activity so life-affirming and so joyful that they do it for years. And you know, you've done it for years yourself. And you and I were in a show, did a show together 8 years ago
Yeah.
or something. That's how we met. I just find that when people get together to do theater, they love it. They love the experience of it. And I think some of it's the foxhole effect. But really, the basis for all relationships is shared experience. And when you have an experience that is dealing with a wonderfully written work of art that you're going to try to bring to life, I mean, you have all kinds of things like delving. There's a concept. You know, spending time with a written work and going over it day after day after day, something we used to do in school when we were little and hated, but really, it's really what's wonderful. It's how you really mine the treasures that are there. So it's a lot of. So the short answer, it's a lot of pro bono work. A lot of people working.
It's a lot of pro bono work, and it's a lot of work outside the arts itself.
Yeah.
Gary LaParle, the artistic director of the Salem Theatre Company.
Managing director.
The managing
Managing
director. I'm sorry, you are the artistic director. He is the managing
That's right.
director.
Yeah.
And so I know that he, as all of you, have to wear many, many hats, and he's a dear friend of mine, and just talking about and knowing in general what goes on behind the scenes of, the fundraising and the reaching out to, not just aside from managing the box office
Sure.
and selling
no, it's
tickets
much
and
more than
making
that.
sure the actors have what they need,
Yeah.
and the fundraising and the development is enormous.
Publicity and the marketing and the
publicity.
website, and it's huge.
Yeah,
It's huge.
it's a very huge
It's a
undertaking.
full-time job.
Yeah.
So something that, in a way, costs very little, generates that amount of money. It's tremendous work of efficiency, in a way. But not very many places have
we
pro
mount our
bono labor.
shows on budgets that are pretty tiny.
Pretty tight.
Yeah.
Very tiny. We'll spend, well, I shouldn't say what we'll spend because it's up to the audience to decide what it's worth. But no, we work extremely efficiently, and but that's because we have designers and builders and volunteers who do this because they love it. It's a labor of love.
Yeah. So also the last night I was at the show and art, which I absolutely love and recommend it to everybody to go and see, kicking off your 10th season.
Yes.
And you talked a little bit about that you actually draw in half of, from ticket sales, half of the managing budget.
Yeah.
And so you have actually something quite interesting this year to kind of help support
Well,
the
this
theater.
is true of nonprofit theaters across the country, is that their earned income, what you get from ticket sales and concessions and maybe program advertising, covers only about half of your operating expense. So every theater has to fill the void with things like sponsorships. Companies can sponsor a production, donations, grants, things of that sort. And so, you're always asking people for money. They bought a ticket, they're sitting in front of you, and what do? You ask them for money. Well, it's tiresome for both of us, but it's necessary. So this year we've come up with, actually we've done it before, but we're doing something called the Broadway Theater Getaway for Two. It's a raffle. For $50, you get a chance to spend a long weekend in New York, a $5,000 value with 2 tickets, transportation down and back, 5-star hotel. Nice, $5,000 value for $50. And, studies have shown that your chances of winning the state lottery are about, well, let's put it this way. You have about a 3 million times better chance of being hit by an asteroid than you do of winning the state lottery.
It's pretty low.
So if we get 300 people to do this, we'll be delighted, and your odds of winning are 1 in 300. And so for a $50 chance, and it also has the extra benefit of supporting STC in
Wonderful.
the process.
I
So
think it's a brilliant idea.
we're hoping people will join us in this raffle and help us.
Yeah, well, the odds are in their favor, so.
Well, they are.
Absolutely.
And if nothing else happens, you've made a donation to the arts.
Yeah.
Well, I also do want, because we're short on time as always, but I want to make sure that our audience knows about the work that you both have done together recently in the community. Can you want to talk a little bit about the work that you've done with the children and some of the
One
other
of the other
projects?
things that's made Salem Theatre Company so successful is they've responded to people's needs
Yeah.
and desires, so they're trying so hard to become part of this community.
Yeah.
Peg Howard wrote a grant, and the woman works endlessly to try to bring interesting projects in.
She's a board member of
Yeah.
STC.
So the Center for Disease Control sent out, said, we're looking for grant suggestions for a thing called Healthy People 2020. And can you really affect people's health choices? And how would you do it? So Peg and I started yammering, and, I feel like the same way as John does about theater.
Yeah.
And the profound impact it has on those who do it and those who see it. And it's funny because so similarly,
Yeah.
I always say to people, usually when you feel attacked, your gates of perception close and you don't hear anything. But when you're at the theater or you're listening to a story, your gates of perception fly open. It's not you. You're entering someone else's journey, and you emerge with their catharsis. And then afterwards is when you think, oh, that's my journey.
Yeah.
So we were hoping through this grant, we said, okay, why don't we work with a group of children from the Salem area and try to create theater pieces that might affect other children's health choices. So we went with something really easy. Drugs and substance abuse, bullying and violence, nutrition. What?
You went right at
Yeah,
it. Hammer and tongs, okay.
And at first I said, I think 10th, 11th graders would be good for this. Wrong. The only kids who were interested were ones who don't have cars yet.
Okay.
So we're working with 7th and 8th graders. Now, they belong in the woods climbing trees. They don't belong in classrooms. Anyone who's had one or worked with them, you go, oh no, 7th and 8th graders.
Yeah.
But
They're hard to hold on to. They are very hard.
They can't hold on to themselves. They're like all over the place. So it was an amazing experience because if you are going to work with that age group, theater's it because almost everybody can be involved at the same time. So we begin by creating an atmosphere of respect, which they don't have out of this small theater. They don't get it much in school. They don't get it on the streets. All the children who participated came from homes where there was some form of distress going on, economic, social. And so they come to you.
Oh, yeah.
Could we put our cell phones away? No, really, it's hard to be here and on your cell phone at the same time. What do you say? So this is what I say, uphill.
She's probably texting about what a pain.
Right.
Yeah.
She's at me.
But we started by creating an atmosphere of respect with something as simple as a talking stick, where when you're holding this magical stick, we all listen to you, and they bought it because it was. And then they started doing these exercises, which they loved because in school you don't have an emotional component. You don't have an expressive component. You don't have a gross motor component. You have kids sitting like this.
Yeah.
And I still learn best when it's my whole body.
Yeah.
And they're 12 and 13 and 14 years old.
Yeah.
So here's an art form that uses their intellect, their imagination, and their motor skills. And they dove in.
It is imperative, I think, to reach this generation coming up through the arts because everything that we do with the tweeting and the all the technology, it really involves the creative mind. But I do want to say before we move, it's very important, I think, for our audience to understand what Salem Theatre Company has brought to a very particular area. I think the mayor is dubbing Lower Lafayette near Broadway as Lola right now, which is a fun name. But I want to call attention to the fact that the Salem Theatre Company is really the anchor organization down there. They were the first arts organization in the area. Now we have restaurants in the area, a yogurt shop, we've got another glass blowing studio.
Right, dress shop.
But really I want the audience to think about is what happens when we lose that anchor audience. It's just, what do you see for the future of Salem Theatre Company? I mean, I just think it's such an important anchor in that area, for that area to be what the mayor wants it to be.
Well, it's very common for a marginal area to be elevated by artists. Artists always go in, usually go in, and
cheap rents.
Well, it's partly that, and
it's
cheap rents, exactly, and they begin to bring more people into the area. It becomes more of a commerce-based,
And there's a lack of
situation.
fear among artists too, of the unknown, and there's a lack
But
of
we
fear.
love it. I love where we are. The community is vibrant. It is safe. Believe me, I've stood out in front of my theater for countless hours. It is safe out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the people are really charming. It's a community. The location couldn't be better for us because it's a major corridor to Marblehead and Swampscott. It's a little tough for people coming from Beverly and Peabody, but hey, Salem's tough for everybody anyway. So we love it there, and I'd love to stay. I mean, I'd just love to see us thrive and just become an institution there.
Have you ever been tempted to try to find a bigger space?
Not until we fill this one.
Not until you fill this one.
No,
Okay.
I think we would be, we need to fill this one, and we're getting better. But we're operating at about 75% capacity, but that's still 25% less.
Yeah.
Once we start filling this one, and it takes a long time to get the word out, an incredibly long time. We have people coming by all day who live in the neighborhood who go, I never saw this before. What is it? I had a guy the other day. Showed him into the theater. You see it too.
The kids come in, they go, theater, where's the screen?
What is it?
Yeah.
And they look at the stage and they think it's a catwalk. And so it's also, very...
But even just to penetrate the consciousness of theatergoers in the area is a long haul.
Yeah.
It does not happen
It is the
overnight.
best thing happening on the North Shore, I believe, in theater.
Thank you.
I just really love your audience. I mean, your seasons. Every season is always so well curated, and
It's a very intimate space too. So people come in, the first thing they say if they've never been here before is, I'm so close.
Yeah.
And sometimes this spooks them because they figure they're going to be required to perform. No.
No.
It means that the acting can be subtle
Yeah.
and precise and lifelike because
Yeah.
you can see it.
Yep.
Yes, it is like, going to a Salem Theatre Company show. It feels like film in that. And having acted on that stage, I knew I didn't have to do the big gesture that would be seen way off in the cheap seat. The best seat in the house is, just a few steps away. And it just made for wonderful acting experience. But to me, I don't know how many shows I've seen there now. It does feel like film. It does feel like film, and the talent feels like the talent is extraordinary.
Film in the sense of the level or the
subtlety.
gauge of the performance.
Just like somebody on stage whispers and you hear their whisper.
I think you can actually see people thinking.
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
yes.
It's
And
being a
that's so
living-
much,
it's like being in
that's
a
a
living
kind
room.
of acting.
It's a
I
living room.
always say to my actors, think the thoughts of the character.
Yeah.
And there's you can tell more intimate stories there. I noticed that you guys aren't doing Miss Saigon up there.
There's no room for the
No,
helicopter.
no.
We are getting a signal to
Shut up.
No,
Move
we
along.
just need to move on. We want to
Yep.
make sure that we introduce Judith,
Right.
who's
We're-
going to perform for us.
We're going to cut to a PSA, and when we come back, Judith's going to treat us to a very new piece called Dancing at the Y.
Whoa.
And you'll be the first to see this recorded, I think.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks. Let's cut to a PSA. The Lady of Salem is a unique installation gracing our downtown brickways and walkways. These graceful ladies watch over our fairways, hailing Salem's resurgence as New England's original port of culture. The Lady of Salem celebrates our rich maritime community, joining local arts and businesses to sponsor and create these one-of-a-kind figureheads. Visit ladyofsalem.com to see these magnificent ladies. Some of them are classic, some have a more modern take, but all of them are striking. Visit ladyofsalem.com to see how you can sponsor a lady or create one. The Lady of Salem is sponsored by a volunteer subcommittee of the Salem Beautification Committee. Once again, visit ladyofsalem.com. Ladies and gentlemen, Judith Black with Dancing at the Y.
No, I can't. You just signed up for ballroom dance classes? It has taken me 8 years, 6 months, and 12 days to talk my husband into it. Oh, God, where are you going? Fred Astaire. Isn't that like in Danvers? Oh, God, please, look, we are signed up at the Y. It is right around the corner. How much does Fred Astaire cost? Pfft, the Y is less than half of that. Oh, come, please, please. My husband's sure that if he takes ballroom dance classes, he's going to end up like a frog that lives downstream of an industrial farm. All the hormones they use on the animals, the testicles on the male frogs. Well, you will? Oh, I'm so, really, it is going to be so much fun to take with friends. Great. I'll see you there. I think it starts Thursday night. Bye-bye. We were on our way to dance classes and with our friends. Woo! That Thursday night, we all arrived at the Y. Now, this is not the new pristine Y high up on the hill. This is the old Y. It looks like it was built during the Civil War era. In the parking lot, all the women got out of their side of the car, and the women kind of dragging them like dogs on their way to being fixed. And we chatted, we went in. Now, in a Y this old, the second you walk in, you're hit with the effluvia of Over 100 years of chlorine and sweat inextricably mixed and filling the floors and walls. We walk down the long hall, down the stairs. We know we're going to the gym that looks more like a bomb shelter than anything else. And there are lots of people. And when we get to the little room outside the gym, everybody's talking and... Oh, God. I am such an idiot. Because there are our friends. Peter and Hans, and they're standing right next to each other with their backs against the wall, a DMZ of dead air separating them from everyone else, looking like deer in the headlight. Oh, God, why didn't I think? I mean, this was our old why. When the rich want to be taught how to ballroom dance, they go to their classes at their yacht clubs. These are the hard-working, self-starting Republicans of Marblehead. It's the fisher folk and the electrician and the plumber and the builder. Oh, God. I yelled much too cheerily, Hans, Peter! Oh, you guys, I'm so glad you could come. Marcia, come here. I want you to meet our friends, Hans and Peter. We broke the DMZ, and then the teacher came in. She had her hair piled high up on her head, one strap slid up to her high heels. Sorry, I had to get the key from the person that runs adult programming. Come on, Bert. And then up stepped Bert, the male teacher. 6'1", short hair, incredible upper body, wearing a t-shirt with huge biceps bulging from it. One with an anchor tattooed, and the other with Pall Mall stuck in the cuff. No filter. The men all exhaled and jauntily walked into the gym. Our friend stood next to us, and in a big circle, the first hour was just protocol. Okay, everybody. She was like one of those chatty Cathy dolls that you pull a cord and she says one line. Boys on the left, girls on the right. Hello, we have a boy and boy here. Okay, now, boys, you're going to take the first step with your left foot. Girls, move back with your right. We have a boy and boy here. Okay, now, we're going to learn how to move around the room. Boys, you're facing. Girl, we have a boy and boy here. And then after an hour, okay, everybody, girls on the inside, boys on the outside, big circle. Now, we're going to change partners. There was a deadly silence. We all, the girls, and they decided, Hans and Peter, that Peter, being slighter, would be the one to play the female role, rotated first to my husband. Well, obviously we were friends, and they danced. There was no problem except, oh God, they were both execrable dancers. And then, change again, girls move! And there was Peter. And he found himself standing in front of this man about a foot taller than he. He was an electrician, and his 5 o'clock shadow came in at 1. He had big shoulders and a big stomach. You could see his wife had made him put on an iron shirt, and it was tucked into his belly, well, below his belly where the belt is. And Peter was trembling. He shot Hans a look of panic, and he couldn't make eye contact with this man. He was so afraid. I am so sorry. I am such an idiot to put you in this position. The music started. There are 8 bars, and half of every eye was watching them, making their own story. And when it came time for partners to embrace, that big burly man went, what the hell? And they danced. And because he did it with such grace, every other man danced with my friend Peter. On the way back out to the parking lot, I yelled, yo, you guys coming back next week? Peter and Hans looked at each other and yelled, yeah. And on the way home, I said to my husband, I am such an idiot that I don't have more faith in humankind.
Oh, thank you.
I've got blisters.
That was marvelous.
Great.
That was marvelous.
Thank you.
You know,
That was wonderful.
Judith, I heard you once say that whenever you do a piece for, say, a slam, and you've got a 4-minute interval, you wind up having to cut out a whole lot of fun stuff from it. What did you cut out of that piece?
Well, this piece was actually created to be short.
To be sure. Okay.
And what happens is something happens in your life, and it doesn't just go away, it resonates. And if you create story out of it, it's understanding why it was impactful for you or the other people, and then reshaping it so that it can do that same thing for your audience.
This seemed like a story almost about, I mean, certainly it was about tolerance and our comfort levels, but to me it was almost a piece about leadership, being the one who stands and says, you know, that burly guy in the piece, being the one who stands and says, look, I'll do it. I'll be the one who says it. Right.
Modeling, yeah.
Yeah,
When people don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, this is also the beauty of storytelling. There's no one moral to the story.
But,
And you hear it and you take from it where you are in your own life. So the story you were talking about before that you saw online, Homecoming, about waiting for my son to come home from his first stint in Iraq as a Marine. I've had people come up to me and say, thank you so much for speaking up for our troops. And I thought that was an incredibly anti-war story. But you don't know the eyes that somebody's watching or hearing with. And, and John will tell you this probably as a director, the writer writes it, the director directs it, they give it to the actors give it to the audience. And that's its own creative process, and you don't know how anything's going to be received. And then the audience brings themselves
to it, and that's the beauty of art,
I mean, you shape it from what you believe in, but you don't know how people are taking anything.
is storytelling the world's oldest profession?
No, honey, you know what that is.
It's one of the oldest.
Yeah,
it's one of the oldest. I mean, somebody had to tell the story of Cain and Abel, right? So.
It tells. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some marvelous. I couldn't help but I was very surprised to learn that, for example, the stories of the Odyssey, Gilgamesh,
all oral tradition.
Beowulf, oral tradition, and somebody eventually wrote them down, and we have no idea who.
The Old Testament.
The scriptures.
The New Testament.
Very, very much oral. Right?
Yeah.
A couple years ago, I ended up adopting my son's Pashto teacher, who was from Pakistan, and the Taliban was going to behead him if he went home, so he came and became our child.
What is Pashto before we go?
Pashto is the language of the Pashtun people.
Okay.
It's a very big tribe, and half of it's in Pakistan and half of it's in Afghanistan, because the British in their genius after the First World War separated them. It's another story. But one of the things when he was living with us is seeing Judaism and Islam. Whenever we would do something by way of Jewish holiday, Nishad would go, oh, we do something just like that. And I mean, realizing that Abraham was both of our fathers and that the stories were so similar in a lot of the culture. It was. So they're archetypes, and they deal with our fears. They deal with our mysteries. It's the same thing John said. You can look, for instance, there's a version of Snow White in 30 or 40 major cultures.
Sure.
And you go, why? What's that about? Mother coming out of her sexual prowess, daughter coming into it. Think you're so hot, you little snazzy. Oh, Mom, be quiet. That's a profound moment in a woman's life. To watch her daughter come into something that's so important as she's starting to leave it. And your sexuality defines so much of who you are.
And you need to separate from your mom to have it.
You need to separate from your mom, and your mom needs to separate from you and find her own life.
The glass menagerie.
Yeah.
Something I
lot of
found
stories,
interesting is that when you look at, there are some tales that every generation has to have its own version of it. There's a Romeo and Juliet that comes out. There's a movie that comes out every 10 years. And funny, Three Musketeers, for some reason, there's got to be a new one. Something about the idea of the daring do, and I'm the guy, and if push came to shove, that'd be me.
Buddy movie.
Right, buddy movie, right. There's always a new one, but we need...
Who once said that there are only 27 plots?
27 plots.
And we just do different versions of 27 plots over and over again with different clothes on.
Ancient motifs resonate through our lives.
I did a production of Dracula years ago, and...
Who'd you play?
5 times.
I'll never guess. I played him many times. He was He was like my James Bond. I was very good. But at any rate,
And he's humble.
Ceaseless modesty,
yeah. And one time a director said, "Look, folks, don't get too worked up about the nuances and everything else. We're doing Shane here. So this is Shane. Dan is Jack Palance, that gunslinger. You're Shane." And it was wonderful. But the thing is, just one story about love isn't enough, or else we'd be telling Romeo and Juliet again and again and again.
We need to see ourselves. So you need to see a mirror of yourself before you're ready to enter a window into another world. And that's what the arts create, because you have to know who your audience is. And if you can create that mirror and people feel that safety, that connection, then they will enter another place.
Can I just say, though, as someone who has watched you and talking about just you as a storyteller doing exactly what you said, it is amazing the way you tell stories, because you do make us feel safe. You open us up. There's a warmth, there's a humor, and watching The Homecoming, and then I just suddenly feel like that kick in the stomach. And I think you described the Pine Street, what have been dubbed by society as the bums and the alkies, and they're lazy.
The garbage barrel of World War II.
That kicked me, your phrasing, the garbage barrel of World War II. And that is my father's generation. And so many of us grew up with the ramifications that played out in so many different ways. The movie Big Fish, I don't know if you've seen that, the father in Big Fish. Certainly all the fathers, all the lost fathers in Sam Shepard's plays. But you just nailed it right there in that little turn of phrase. And I was just brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
It was wonderful. Do tell us about, you studied with the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts,
In London.
If you can imagine, I believe Peter O'Toole went there. I believe Ray Fiennes. Was there anybody in your class we'd have
No,
recognized?
it was a special master's class, so I didn't do the, but it was amazing because there were people from all over the world who got accepted to this master's class.
Sure.
And like one woman who'd been a very famous actress stopped to have her children and was coming back. And in training with Brits, Brits don't feel it, identify with that.
Yeah.
They're like, show it. I don't care what you're feeling, show it.
Show me, don't tell
Yeah, so
me.
learn technique.
Yeah.
And the teachers were phenomenal. And there was this great experience. So when you're in London, of course, you go to theater as much as you can.
Sure.
And it was one of the Henrys, and they were doing it in the park. And you get the greatest lessons in your work by what doesn't work. What does work goes like this. Shh, that was nice.
Sure.
That was
Right.
nice. And we're watching this production, and the soldiers are all standing there, and one is like, I wonder where Madel is. I'm looking for her. And that's the one person you're watching.
Sure.
And our teachers had always told us about investing in what's going on. But until you see something like that, you go, oh my God, they are so right. Because everyone's watching the guy look for Madel in the audience.
Well, it's wonderful that it occurred to me what Salem Theatre has and what you have in common is the intimacy of the story. The story is right there. The people are right there. It is that much more relatable. There comes a point at which, Frank Langella, who was up for an Oscar for playing Nixon in Frost Nixon, was sitting there at the table with the other Oscar nominees, which include Brad Pitt, and they included Robert Downey. And he was looking around the table. He says, there comes a point, and who knows who he is? You wouldn't know him if you saw him on the street. And he said, there comes a point at which the personality is so large that you don't forget who you're watching.
Yes.
And I guess what he was more or less saying is, when you go see a Pitt movie, you know who you're watching the entire time. And that's something that's kind of happened with, Robert De Niro or Dustin Hoffman. You don't forget who you're watching. Johnny Depp even. Frank Langella, you can forget that. So there's just the intimacy of, I go to the Salem Theatre Company, go to yourself. These are accessible people telling intimate stories to which I can relate, and I get lost. Last night in art, completely forgot for a little while that I was sitting comfortably watching.
Oh, I have
You wanna get that,
Everybody,
John?
please turn off their phone before
That
the show starts.
Dinkelacker, I think, who's been harassing
Oh, really?
the arts in Salem.
is
So
these
sorry.
He wants us to
days.
turn down the music.
So sorry. I
Dinkelacker
didn't listen to the
is
pre-show
holding a
announcement.
grudge.
That's
You know,
fine.
last week, a woman named K.R. Glickman previewed a show, and this is in that incredible series they have. What do you call it? Arts and
Music and More.
Music and More. And she is, she's a deaf woman who was
yes.
telling the story of her life. And in the intimacy of that stage, and it sold out. I mean, there were people like lined up down the street to see this. People came out going, oh my God, I understand a life experience here in this country near me so completely different from mine. And the whole issue that deaf people have with learning to voice, to read lips, and to voice, and what deaf culture means. And that was such a gift.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody would have met KR or seen her work had it not been
Do
for
you
the
bring
theater.
people back? Do you bring shows back? Do you ever talk about the shows that have been particularly
We've done the
successful?
Crucible a couple times, and
Yeah.
we'll probably do it again
Yeah.
because
Sure.
it is the signature show for Salem, and it's a bloody great script.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's a wonderful story, and it has ramifications that echo today.
Oh, absolutely.
For, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll do the Crucible again sometime soon. I just want to touch on this issue of intimacy because, you know, it wasn't until fairly recently in human history that a person could go in and see professional performers perform for them. It was usually reserved for royalty and the court. So there were shows that traveled around for the masses, but to be able to go down and sit down and have an artist perform exclusively for you, you know, is, you may not think about it, but I think you feel it, is incredibly exciting. I mean, they're there just for you. And although they may do the same thing the next night, you know the performance is going to change. The performance responds to the audience. The audience helps create the performance.
Yeah.
So it's, and I think this sometimes gets lost in people.
Yeah.
They don't really, they might feel it, but they may not think about it. Wow,
Yeah.
I'm actually being treated to a personal live
It's a
performance here.
gift. It's a gift.
And I think it's lovely.
Yeah, and I do feel like just watching your piece Homecoming, that is that is something that's a little alien to me. There's simply nobody in my family who's overseas. There's simply nobody in my close circle who has gone through that experience, and yet I feel like, boy, I know that now. I can relate to an older woman, another experience I don't have. You know, a woman with a son
Oh,
overseas.
honey, you should more often.
I was like an older woman.
Well, that's
Yeah.
another show.
Yeah.
We'll talk later.
Speaking of other shows,
You sold it.
I'm getting
It's the short
signals and
story.
I'm kicking Dan under the table because we have
And I'm saying, stop
on.
kicking me. What the hell? Yeah.
But I want to assure the audience that we will have you both back. I mean, certainly with every announcement of every new season for Salem Theatre Company for years to come, I hope.
Great. Yeah,
And
me too.
Judith, I hope you'll be our Tom Cruise on Oprah. You just keep coming back and
Oh.
sharing with us.
Yeah.
The audience can also keep up with what the Salem Theatre Company and Judith is doing. Follow us at Salem GASworks on Facebook and on Twitter, and we will continue to just roll whatever you're doing and keep our audience in touch with whatever you're doing into the future.
Great.
Thank you for
Yeah,
doing
very
this.
thank you.
What a great
Thank
show.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. We'll see you on episode 5.